Welcome to the latest Fowler Welsh Industry Insight, where we ask experts about trends and issues affecting retail, food production and logistics.
My name's Alex Edge. I'm Supply Chain Insight Manager at IGD. IGD are a food and grocery charity focusing very much across the supply chain, across the end consumer and across retailers as well. So there's a number of issues at the moment that we're seeing, so either around space utilisation, so making the most of the space that you've got available, and this is really in reference to kind of integrity of stock. So ensuring stock records are correct, stock wastage is kept to a minimum, and also on the other side, by making the most of the spare capacity you've got, we're seeing a lot of collaboration in terms of consignment stock in the moment. So a recent IGD study identified 26% of the individuals we surveyed currently using consignment stock in some way, shape or form to tackle spare capacity issues in their depot network. I think one of the main common misconceptions is that date codes aren't a problem in ambient storage. Over the years, people have kind of assumed that within ambient you kind of stack it high and wait for the product to sell. So that's firstly the main misconception. Secondly, it's that the ambient network isn't as sophisticated as other networks, so particularly fresh and chilled, for example, where that's really seen as the source of best practice. So where you've got much shorter lead times, you'd only be holding 1 to 2 days worth of stock at any one time. So yeah, really not as sophisticated, but again, a common misconception there. Firstly, not just in ambient storage, but across the whole supply chain, we're seeing a huge growth in collaboration across trading partners. And what collaboration can do, it can really allow you to drive up your economies of scale. So by perhaps collaborating to share a shared distribution centre, for example, you don't have to expand all of that capex out just purely within your own business. You can share that cost across businesses. And also that can tackle issues around the bullwhip effect, for example. So whereas manufacturers may have rules around full truck rounding, you can eliminate those issues by collaborating to combine vehicles and share resource. Secondly, we've seen an increasing use in technology and the rise of data over recent years. So particularly around things like drones within warehouses. So drones are now being used to take stock takes in warehouses. So where it would take perhaps 80 members of a warehouse team 3 to 4 days to count the whole of one warehouse, a drone can do this now within 1 day. Next, we've seen the growth of RFID tagging within warehouses. So this is by no means a new technology, but really RFID allows you to live track either individual cases, layers or pallets across its journey throughout the warehouse. So you don't need to book that stock into the warehouse. It allows you to accurately rotate your stock, and it allows you to track its life journey across all the way out to goods out. So finally, we're seeing big trends with automation in depots, particularly around picking of whole pallets, and even down to layer now as well. So we're seeing some retailers automate layer picking in their warehousing. What this means is the technology required for automated picking actually requires your warehouse aisles to be significantly narrower. So in trials that have recently been run, it's been found that the aisles can be up to 40% narrower than a regular aisle that would be picked manually. And with this, you can get up to 40% improvements in the amount of volume of pallets and stock you can store in that warehouse. And with all new warehouses that we're seeing emerging now, they're all opting for this automated version. Where there's going to be difficulties in the future is starting to retrofit this solution onto some legacy manual type of warehouses that are currently in place within the industry. So certainly in the ambient grocery network, stock loss is still a significant issue and stock shrinkage within the depot network, particularly as retailers are becoming increasingly empowered and their life rules and restrictions are becoming fairly strict. So in some cases, these restrictions can be up to 75% of life needed when delivering to the end customer. And as a result, this is driving much more pressures on the ambient grocery network to keep the flow of stock fresh and reduce the time that product spends in storage. Secondly, the reduction of manual touch points within depots is a huge opportunity now that many kind of ambient grocery networks are focusing on. So with each manual touch point within the warehouse, there's opportunity for a pallet or a case or even an individual unit to be lost, to be damaged. So it can be damaged either by hand or by material handling equipment. So at any point, to reduce that handling, you can take cost out of the supply chain and take the chance of human error out of the supply chain as well. At the moment, we're seeing many grocery ambient manufacturers, manufacturing suppliers as well, collaborating and partnering with many kind of service providers within the industry, particularly focusing on tackling phantom stock. Phantom stock is any stock that exists either in a depot warehouse or within a retailer store that shows on file, but upon check-in, it doesn't actually exist. So it could be theft, it could be a mispick, for example, or an incorrect put away. And many kind of software providers now, even in the last 2 to 3 years, have opened up and they're focusing on this specific issue. And this is one way that ambient grocery manufacturers and depots are trying to extract value from the stock they hold. So over recent years, we've seen a reducing focus on promotional activity within stores, particularly across the top 4 retailers. And this is really in reference to kind of multi-buy activity, half-price activity. So Sainsbury's have all but eliminated multi-buy activity over the last few years. As a result, for suppliers, this has meant that their ordering profile has become slightly more stable, so you don't have the whole high-low buy-ins at the end of each month, and demand is becoming a lot more predictable as we move towards the EDLP format. So firstly, collaboration will be essential in the future supply chain. So the market is in relatively slow growth, so it's getting harder and harder to eke those 1% and 2% cost improvements out of the supply chain. So by collaborating either with your peer companies, with retailers, with service providers, you can really build those economies of scale to extract value from what exists within your business. So synchronization will be a significant success factor in the future supply chain. So increasingly we're seeing collaboration in order to synchronize partners across the chain. So what this really means is taking the end consumer EPOS data and sharing that information as fast as possible all the way up the supply chain. And what this means for ambient grocery manufacturers and for retailers, they can make much faster decisions in their supply chain. So if a promotion begins tomorrow, the promotion does very well, you can turn that stock around in a much shorter period of time than you would be able to before. And the final tip for improving efficiencies in the supply chain would be to utilise and take advantage of technology. This isn't about investing in capital expenditure necessarily, or investing in the most up-to-date technology or data acquisition, for example, but it's really about using resources to make the most of what currently exists within your company and extracting the most value from the data that you have in your possession. So as consumers become increasingly empowered, what we're seeing, current trend that we're seeing is a demand for same-day order fulfillment in the delivery of food and grocery. So whereas the quickest, the top retailers can get your goods to the end consumer is currently kind of day one for day two, we're now seeing trends for day one delivery. And you're seeing this reflected really across the industry with people like Sainsbury's at the moment. So they're currently trialling this same-day fulfillment service in 3 stores in central London, aiming to roll this out to 30 stores by the end of 2016. You've seen the success of Amazon Prime Now over the last few years, Argos Shuttle, all focusing on same-day order fulfillment. So really for grocery manufacturers and for ambient warehouses, really have to consider that the future is going to be really around that same-day order fulfillment. So does your current model fit that, or can you retrofit a solution that will fit the future environment?